Welcome to Conservatorium Maastricht, where we are continuing our second day of master research presentations. Today we will be doing 3 presentations. The first one will be Tom Schmidt's presentation. After the video, we will come back in the live room for the Q&A. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tom Schmit, and welcome to my master research presentation. It's called Exploring the Expanded Sonic and Expressive Potential of the Bass Guitar. I've been playing bass for 14 years, and somewhere along the way, a question started growing in the back of my mind, became more oppressive over the time. Why devote your life to an instrument where most of its capabilities aren't even wanted? See, that's the message I kept getting. And of course, your own mind can do the interpretation and form it in a certain way. The message I kept getting was stay low, serve the song, play the root, don't take the spotlight, and please don't bring a pedal board. Don't even dare to bring a 6-string bass because we have a guitar player over there. That was becoming a problem because I was really interested in learning advanced harmony, how to play chords on the instrument, voice leading, playing melodies. So there was this tension growing. And the message I got again and again was that none of it was really needed in a bassist. That really depressed me. I got demotivated so much that I didn't really want to practice. The bass lessons I had over the last few years, they were not really inspiring to me. So I was starting to wonder why I was doing this at all. I really almost quit the bass. But when thinking about it, I realized the instrument is not really the problem. My beliefs about it were. My beliefs and what I think everyone else thinks. Something I found very early on in my research, bass, the role, doesn't equal bass the instrument. That's an important distinction to make. Because the role means you are the harmonic and rhythmic foundation of a band. And that's a beautiful thing. I love it. Really, it's my favorite role to occupy. It really deserves a lifetime of mastery on its own. And I don't want to knock the importance of it. But the role is a function. A function that can be occupied by a variety of instruments. And when we confuse the two, when we treat the instruments as if it is the role, we close off everything else it can do. I did this to myself, as well as others did that, to my belief. A bass guitar can do different things than a bass clarinet. That can do different things than a bass saxophone, which does a different thing than a bass flute, which does a different thing than a double bass. But they all have bass in the name. So bass the instrument doesn't equal bass the role. Where does this confusion come from? Here's my belief. When Leo Fender released the first mass-produced electric bass in the 50s, Fender called it the precision bass. It was also a marketing trick. It was marketed towards double bass players. It was called precision bass because you could play the notes precisely, pointing at the frets. You don't have to worry about intonation anymore. It was also much easier to amplify because double bass was and still sometimes is difficult to amplify. And with the growth of guitar amplifiers and bands getting louder, the acoustic upright bass being amplified by a hollow part of this wooden stage could just not keep up. So the bass guitar was marketed towards double bass players, inviting them to play the same things on the bass guitar, but their ancestors are different. The double bass comes from the gamba family, which has a rich and long tradition, versus the bass guitar being quite young. This difference is important because double bass, due to the nature of its construction, is more bound to the bass roll than the bass guitar. It has slow attack and it has fast decay, and the upper register fades away fast. This is not good or not bad, this is just how the instrument is. It's just an inherent quality of the instrument, versus with the bass guitar doesn't have these qualities. It has different qualities. Bass guitar has a solid body, electric pickups, frets, and the guitar ancestor. That means the techniques that are available for guitars are also available on the bass guitar. That's why I keep on telling it like this. It's a bass form of the guitar. It's not an electrical form of the double bass. This leads me to a remark I got. What's the point of this research? If I want a bassist, I don't need someone that swerves out of his role. I don't need another soloist. I don't need another harmony instrument. This belief, it's kind of ignorant, is what I'm trying to disperse with this research. I don't think it was a bad or mean comment. It's more, ignorant, not knowing better. Because a bassist, doesn't matter which instrument the bassist plays, with vast harmonic and melodic knowledge, can only enhance music. So my question is, why is it that the bass has to hold back? I mean, one of the points is due to it being in the bass roll. Bass roll benefits from the bassist being more consistent. That doesn't mean he has to be boxed in. With that out of the way, let's get to the questions. The questions are, how can the color palette and roles of the bass guitar be expanded, naturally and musically, with and without effects? I split it into two sub-questions. First, I wanted to explore the bass without effects, and then sub-question 2, role expansion with and without effects, and the practical implications. Can you do it spontaneously, or does it have to be pre-composed or pre-planned? When it comes to existing research, I didn't find much. In fact, I almost finished these 2 years of masters without finding anything. Just right at the end, I did find a person called Simon Leslie. He is a composer. He researched the bass guitar from a composition perspective. He analyzed the instrument deeply. He analyzed a lot of the past music where the bass guitar was innovative. He noted a few qualities. He noted that the bass guitar is capable of fierce precision due to its fast and precise attack, as well as the frets. It can be very pointy. It can be microtonally accurate with bends. He identified something he called singing mid-range, where the tone becomes warm and more confident, enough to carry a melody. And he noted that it mixes well with French horns in an orchestra. He noted that with the harmonics, the whole range of the instrument, without effects even, can span 3.5 octaves. And it is capable of true polyphony, so it can play more than one note at a time. He borrowed this lovely idea of the bass guitar being a supra-instrument. That with technology, it isn't bound to the low end at all. It can go as high and be as expressive as you can imagine. I leaned on Leslie a lot, and I agree with him on the big point, that the bass guitar is meant for more. Where our research differs is this. Leslie writes strictly for composers in contemporary art music. So all the music he analyzed, he dismissed as not a good example for his research, because he really wants to look into bigger compositions with different instrumentations, orchestras, and I'm a performer. I love playing the bass guitar, I love occupying the bass role, and I want to see what it can do in different genres. For Leslie, when it's too defined to a genre, it doesn't count, but for me it does. I want the bass guitar in normal, everyday music as well. I want to make people dance, and I want to actually perform. So I took his idea and went looking for them in the real world and see what I can come up with. Which brings me to how I actually did this. There were no method books, no clear starting point on how I could start this research, and there was no one else who deeply researched the bass guitar and it being undervalued in general. So I had to start from zero. I had to make the map on my own, and it was a lot of chaos. I made different systems that I abandoned. I had 5 different folders, all saying master research. I had 2 notebooks, physical notebooks, also about master research. I made a whole Notion page that I abandoned because it just blew out of proportions, and instead of becoming more organized, it became more chaotic. So what I would do is I would experiment with any idea that would come to mind. It was quite scattered at first, so any idea with effect patches on my HX Stomp, on different bases I have, and YouTube videos I would find, I would just take some ideas and experiment with what I saw. I would also steal selectively from solos to lines to chord, but mostly to effect sounds, and see how I could reproduce them. As a note, I found it very useful to transcribe effect sounds and try to replicate them. And I would implore anyone to try that. That's also why I haven't really explained in my Substack posts on how to achieve that sound, to invite anyone that's interested in exploring it on their own. I would also open Ableton and just record anything that came to mind. And later on, I would also try to compose little tunes using the bass guitar in multiple roles. What it ended up becoming was that I would practice something like triads and triad inversions, for example, voice leading between them. Then I would open up OBS, play my bass directly into it with my mirrorless camera recording it. Then I would use a voice recorder and just speak out my thoughts and what I think as a listener. Sometimes I would do that immediately after recording it, and sometimes I would wait 2 or 3 weeks to just have a different state or have a bit more distance when looking at it. Then I would take the transcript, would put it on Substack and edit it further in written form. And then I would publish it. The tools that I used were my basses, the Line 6 HX Stomp, a couple of drives, external drives, external octave pedal, would use Ableton, of course, OBS, Substack. And I relied heavily on the Line 6 HX Stomp here because it's an effect modeler, which has all the effect categories in there, and it allows you to make digital pedal boards. Substack became my public diary. I ended up with 8 recorded tone experiments, but I have had a lot more that are not published or that I didn't record. But these are the concrete ones. This was the best way for me to work. It made me feel good and I could get good results with it. To close that chapter, the first sub-question with how can the bass guitar be expanded on naturally without the use of effects, I made a little video demonstrating some of my basses and what sounds clean basses could reproduce. These examples are not exhaustive, and there's many more ways to create different sounds. And the thing I realized at the end of my 8 experiments is that I naturally feel drawn towards meditative music, reverbs, and making soundscapes, taking up a lot of sonic space. That's one of the important things I noticed, that when recording yourself, you can see habits that you are not aware of beforehand. So the same way a different instrument can bring out a different thing in your playing, having different effects can bring out different things as well in your playing. But using the same instrument and using the same effects can also make you play similar things. And then the whole new practice is to break out of that habit. So effects are not gimmicks, they are great tools to enhance your musicianship and explore the instrument you choose to play in a new way. So in this next example, I show you how with the use of effects you can remove the whole natural sound of a bass guitar and replace it with a synthy sound. The bass guitar is great for that because the nature of the instrument is an electrical signal. So if you find a way to remove that and have an artificially created signal, like with an oscillator, then you can adapt your sound to the sound of a synthesizer, which is great for me because I love synthesizers, but I just hate the way they feel on my fingers, like these little plastic key thingies. So to me, it's a win-win. I can use my instrument and get the sound of synthesizer. So basically I did what I just said. First thing is strip the signal of your natural bass sound. How do you do that? Well, you use an octave pedal. There's many different kinds, and you remove the dry signal or the natural signal of your bass. Then you play the bass an octave higher because an octaver reproduces the same tone an octave lower. But if you don't have a dry signal, you don't hear the octave higher. So you play an octave higher, you have the same octave occupied on the instrument. The sound itself can sound cool, but you want to shape it. That's where any kind of drive comes into play. You can use a mild overdrive, a mild distortion, a mild fuzz, or you can just crank it up, which gives the sound much more character. Then you detune the bass, or rather, you fake the use of multiple oscillators that a synthesizer would use, and you do that by using a modulation effect that takes the waveform of the music you put in and will be slightly adjusted in the amplitude for it to sound a little detuned. There's a ton of modulation effects. A chorus is only one of them. And then later on, you can add other spice, which would be a delay or reverb. I decided to put some reverb on to just make it hit harder a bit. But that's the general idea. I want to encourage you to try out different octavers, different drives, different modulation effects and reverbs, and just see what can come out. This is the basic formula. In this next clip, I want to show you how you can play interactively with yourself. What you do is you take a delay effect, you set it to 1 repetition, and then react on the repeated signal to create an interactive way. So you always react to the signal, which then reacts on your reaction, and then you can react on the reaction of the reaction. Later on, I will also put a pitch shifter, which is set to a fifth, and then with some parallel processing, I can also change only the repeated signal to create new ways of making sound on the bass and playing solo. At the end of my Substack experiments, I noticed more and more how they become a mirror to myself, and where I can really look at myself and see what I'm doing, what my habits are, what my tendencies are, and that allows me to analyze my thoughts, analyze my playing, and be aware of it. That means in the future, I can break out of these habits and grow more as a musician. As I said before, I noticed that I tend to just use a lot of reverb and play meditative things out of time, 1 or 2 chords, that's it. But no complex chord progressions or voice leading, really. So really, I was making a similar piece over and over again, and I didn't notice. I just played what felt good, which of course is a valid reason to play something, but we are also artisans and we want to work on our craftsmanship and on our vocabulary of what we play in general. What also shifted is my whole relationship to the word practice. To me, words are only symbols and they point at something abstract. I believe that everyone in this room knows the word practice, but it can mean something different for everyone. For me, it used to mean it's something I should do, or I better do it, otherwise I don't get any gigs, or I won't play with anyone because they don't want to play with me. That's a lot of pressure. It sounds mechanical and no fun. What changed is that practice now to me means a wonderful moment alone with my instrument, exploring it, what can it show me today, and finding and digging for these moments where you think, what was that? So practice is a bit like going to the gym or working out. It's progressive overload now for me, but it's progressive overload for musicality and not for physical strength. Something I noticed with these experiments with producing, with just recording myself and trying to play something over it, is that I stopped thinking only in what I am doing, what my sound is on the bass guitar. I even stopped thinking in notes, chords, and rhythms while playing it. Of course, it's on my mind, but it's not the only thing. And I started thinking more in sound, how different sounds can complement each other, and how all of these little mosaic pieces fit into the whole picture. So a bit more like you will look at music like a producer and sound engineer, and not only as an instrumentalist. So this research allowed me to zoom in and out further within the music and compositions. And the piece I wrote called Minette, which is a region in the south of Luxembourg, reflected that shift in thinking. I used multiple tracks, just bass guitar, but thanks to the effects and everything I learned, I could compose the whole piece and mix it in such a way that's appropriate for the different roles. This shows that I shifted from being a bass player to thinking more like a composer. So, my research suggests that the bass guitar is one of the most versatile instruments that exists. Naturally so, due to its guitar heritage, there's a breadth of techniques that all take a lifetime to master. Playing chords, playing melodies, voice leading, accompaniment, bass roll itself, groove, time, percussion, all of them take so long to master. But then add to that technology and the whole sound universe of music effects. You can just it's such a big endeavor to research all of this. And the 2 years in which I set out to do this don't even scratch the surface. And it's very hard to have put everything into 30 minutes of presentation because there are so many findings that I couldn't include. That made me realize that the teachers and the people that wanted me to play solos, wanted me to play chords and transcribe harmony, especially the bass players, they were right. But of course, with my limiting beliefs, I didn't hear them. So it's not my teacher's fault for not telling me. It was my mind blocking what they were telling me. And through this research, I could unblock it. I realized that all the notable names in the bass guitar world, they never stop at what does the role require. They were full-on musicians, not bass guitarists, musicians. They studied music through the lens of the bass guitar. And if you go back to the remark I got, what's the point of this research? Well, the point is this. All of these players, they became better bassists, better occupants of the bass role because they studied all the other aspects of music. And that's the biggest takeaway here. They became better musicians. So that strongly suggests that exploring the instrument and mastering the role, they aren't opposites at all. They are connected. And I don't know what the biggest finding is. Is it that bass guitar truly is underutilized and people still need to get used to that the bass guitar is not an electrical version of the double bass? Or that I researched my mind, my habits, as much as I did research the instrument? See, I thought this research is objective. It's about the bass guitar. What else would it be about? But in the end, it was about me. Me. So when I set out to research this instrument, what I found was a confirmation bias. That just confirmed my limiting beliefs. Like students, they don't want a bass guitarist, they prefer double bassists. Composers who wrote for the bass to be in the natural low, and the strange thing is, I had actually played outside the bass role all along, in real projects and more than once. But somehow my mind treated them as not counting and as if they weren't real. The same thing with the amount of YouTube videos that are out there, showing a clear contradiction to my previous limiting belief. That's also what happened. Once that dogma dissolved, the counter evidence was pretty much everywhere. And as I said before, even in my own past. And what it taught me was beyond just music, because as we evolve as people, so does the way we play music and express ourselves in art. That changes too. That's why I want to implore anyone that is an artist to record themselves, analyze themselves, sit in the tension of not liking what you do, and go into your own mind and find what's there. What is it telling you? That makes you grow as a person. And when you grow as a person, your music, or the way you play music, changes too, and it grows too. So the bass has a lot of potential, the bass guitar, but still there are some limits. First of all, technology is almost limitless, and the more it advances, the more sound options there are. But the bass guitar is still limited. You physically can't play more than about 4 notes without straining. That's already quite hard. So 3-note voicings are the real sweet spot. And since the bass guitar has such a full sound, even 3 notes sound super dense and they eat up a lot of space. So I would think more in voicings the way a Fender Rhodes player would look at it, because it's also quite a dense sound, and when the Rhodes plays low, it occupies a similar frequency spectrum. And when you play chords, it's good to adjust the EQ, take out some bass and low mids to occupy less space. And important is that just because the instrument can do so many things doesn't mean you have to whip them out all the time. So the real skill becomes, what can I use when? And when is it better to just leave out the whole potential or certain aspect of the potential? So this research set off a journey from instrumentalist to musician. As I said, the point isn't that you have to use everything all the time. And please don't hear it that way. Don't hear it as in I say, you shall use all of the bass guitar techniques all the time. That's not the point of it. My point is that the instrument has all of this potential, and when the potential is unused, that should be a choice you make on purpose. Not something you do because you didn't even know the potential was there. And this isn't limited only on the bass guitar. Every instrument and every musician has these blind spots. There's unexplored potential everywhere, if we are just willing to question what we think our role is. As I mentioned also, I thought this is an objective research, but it became very personal. You might even say, duh, how could you not see that before? And fair enough, but in the end I didn't see it. This research became subjective quite fast, and it was about unraveling a knot I had in my mind. It stopped being a research for 2 years, and it became a practice that I'll be doing for the rest of my life. And again, I want to say that to any musician. Record yourself. Keep a diary. Write down what you're thinking before, during, and after you play. And again, it's worth repeating, because as we change as people, our art changes with us. And to me, that's beautiful.
Give it up,
My name is Tom Schmit, and welcome to my master research presentation.
All right, welcome back in the live room, where we will continue with the Q&A for Tom. Thank you, Tom, for your presentation. Since I'm your supervisor, I will kick off this time.
Okay.
So, of course, it's been a rather rough process for you, basically, and I'm very happy that you ended up finding so much in it, you know. And I was mostly wondering how you feel about the depth of the reflection and the depth of maybe analysis and stuff that you reached. If you could say a few words about this, on the process, on the things that you were dealing with.
Well, yeah, I'm really glad I got this deep, but it turned out to not be more about music anymore, more about blockages of how you can be in your own way when practicing, when researching something, and how being in your own way can affect the way you study things or how you approach things. I've always been interested in psychology, so to me it's great, but it became kind of a mixture of self-study and the instrument. And again, for your sake, I would have loved for it to be more objective, to show you more findings. But in the end, I just discovered things that a lot of people already knew or kind of did automatically, without having to unravel something in their mind that keeps them from doing it.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question?
Yes, yeah. And I have a bit of a hunch that actually now in the documentation that you ended up with, you're actually not showing what you did end up doing in the first year of the process. If you can dig back to what things you were doing back then, would you agree that it's not really so present in the documentation?
Yeah, it's not so, definitely it's not present. I changed it quite a lot of times because I didn't know what I wanted this research to look like. And I tend to dismiss anything I find or anything I thought might be interesting. That's also an aspect of the new findings I have, that anything I find is not good enough. I cannot show it like this. And in the end, it just became discarded and beyond the graveyard of ideas.
Yeah. So would you be able to name a few things you did do in the first year that actually would be worthwhile to share? Or is it that far discarded that you don't remember?
It's quite far discarded. I mean, all the times I just sat down to explore the instrument with chords, especially chordal voicings, that I did a lot in the first year.
Exactly.
And also experimenting with how the bass responds. How short can the bass be to still have the root note in your memory to play chords on top?
Exactly, this interchanging effect.
Yes, and I would say these are two prominent examples.
Exactly, I would say they're very prominent and missing in your documentation.
I was even playing some of them in my videos.
There was a bit there, but there's no discussion, right? And there's no real. You're not offering a lot of insight, you know.
Yep.
And I think that's a twist that I see in your second year. That finally you found at least a way to talk about your process, and it has been very hard for you in the first year.
Yeah, very difficult. Even the second year was
Yeah,
quite
it was
hard.
late as well, even, but.
It was a lot of stumbling blocks on the way. That's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions here?
Yeah. Well, congratulations for your presentation, Tom.
Thank you.
I was thinking on a question that was coming when I read your report, when I saw all the stuff that you are doing, about the very point of your research. So I will turn a little bit because you trigger a lot of stuff on my way of thinking, what is really nice. I did some research about the topic, and I see that the role the idea of role, that's where you are pointing your research, is the function of position or a part of that a person takes on society. Can we agree on that? No.
Yes.
Yes. So roles are actually a social construct. So are a discussion of society. No. So your research starts there, and then I've seen a lot of isolated practices of the base. And my question comes here: how do you see the society, the base in society? And I mean, are you perceiving that the world you are living in is completely different from the world of the 50s when we saw this change between the bass and the electric bass? Is that where this is coming from? Or how do you see music? Because of course your research, when you expand the role of bass, changes. What is the relationship with bands, with even with education? I mean, how do you see your research in the professional domain and in the future, and how does it affect, what is the social part? How do you see that?
Well, the social part is that as humans we like to box things into categories because it helps us make sense of the world. And we do that in society as well as we do that in music as well. So, your instrument has bass, you go there, you play drums, you are rhythm section, you support the thing, and then, your instrument cannot produce two tones at the same time, you play melody. And it's easy for us to make sense, and we create a piece of music and then we call it that a piece of music. And we also are habitual animals, so we just tend to repeat the things we know, and we tend to not question these things. So for me, it's exactly that. The bass in the 50s, it was a transition from the double bass to the bass guitar. And the first people that had to play the bass guitar, they were double bassists. I mean, most famous example is James Jamerson. He even just played the bass guitar with one finger and muted the sound on the bridge because it had too much sustain. It's too precise. I need a bit of wash in there. And then, over the time, the bass guitar kind of evolved as its own instrument, and you had dedicated bass guitar players. And the problem there is that these players were mostly solo players. You have Stanley Clarke, you have Victor Wooten, for example, you have Mark King, and they just showed the bass as a solo instrument, which doesn't make an argument for how the bass can interact with different musicians. It's a show of, okay, you can have a different role on it, but it doesn't change how we interact within a musical piece. Because usually we have also, everyone has their role, and then for this piece, until the end, everyone keeps it, and there's no switch happening in between. I'm not sure if I now digress or answer your question, but for the future, I do hope that with the use of technology, that more people can use the technology and the advances in it to make music in a more interactive way or compose it in such a way that we can switch role within music to make something new.
So you are envisioning a new music, actually, a new role of music.
A different way. Let's say a healthy disrespect to tradition and history, while still keeping it in mind and not just putting everything into the trash bin, but just questioning and see, okay, how could we change a little bit?
Thank you.
Dominic?
I have some question, potentially. I think the social construct that you say, the bass role and the bass guitar role, is actually the U project, is I don't really agree James Jamerson or Jacob Pastoris or Victor Wooten, Yannick Wisdala. I think they all succeeded in their own way to project their artistic aspect to the bass role. Actually, James Jamerson is a prior example that he actually conversate a lot with the drums and all the other instruments, in the bass role, and he was probably one of the first one. That's why we took him as an example. But I don't think, especially nowadays, people divide the role as much as, I mean, I don't think it's ever people actually categorize that way, except the students, how we are. You know, we learn in the school, yeah, just play the root. But I don't think Victor Rutter or Marcus Miller, they just, even Jaco Pastorius, they play just the root. I think, so what I feel is missing from it is kind of the focus. I'm not getting what you're trying to say, except the sound patches that you, the explanation of the sound patches, which was great, and the last soundtrack was really fun to hear, and I really see how you want to project your abstract to this topic, but I'm really missing the focus. How is how the bass role that you said, the first topic, the bass role, the feature construct, and the sound exploration is combined through your artistic abstract. That's kind of what I'm missing. And yeah, I agree with them. You know, like a practice and developing the artistic development for sure. But yeah, maybe if you could elaborate on the missing link in between.
Definitely. It also goes back to how I learned music. I started out when I was 7, playing trumpet. And since I'm 7 years old until now, I'm 30 now, I've always been going to music school. I didn't learn music on my own. I just always had music education. I always had solfege classes, way too many. I still dread them. But that also shaped my mind in such a way that I put boxes around these things as well. And what I notice now with this research is that I've been doing that. There's a lot of things missing. And also what I try to say in my point at the end is that actually now that I kind of cleaned that up, with all the names I also mentioned, they have been doing this all along. It's not just a solo instrument, these people have explored it and have been trailblazing this instrument. I just couldn't see it before. Because, of course, you should check out Jaco Pastorius, but somehow I didn't much.
But I was wondering why you couldn't see these arts already there. Has been probably hundreds of years. You know, like even double bass has concerto before. You know, and why was the reason you found out very recently?
That's also what I tried to say with like how can you not see this? I ask myself the same question. There's not really a reason, because there's so much evidence out there against that belief, but it just came from living too much in my head that I shut out anything else. That's the confirmation bias. You just see in the world what you already believe. I would say that's the reason.
What is your future exploration now? Like, are you going to be focusing more on really how can you develop the sound of the bass even more? So kind of sticking to what you said at the beginning, the classic bassist role, but expanding on the sounds like you were doing in some of the examples, you know, adding ring modulator or distortion to it? Or is it more in the direction of, I want to become more virtuosic with the instrument, together with the effects, I guess, but more in the virtuosic side? Like, which of these directions are you planning to go to?
I would say both, because what I have been ignoring is like 3/4 of the instrument over the years. I just focus on groove, being stable, listening a lot, or maybe too much to Michael Leake saying, just stay low, keep the groove, don't change it. So I will explore how I can occupy the bass role, but play it more musically, less stiff in the mindset. Like often when I played, it was like, okay, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be, but not, do I like it, or how does the whole music sound together? And then I will explore the effects too, because I love them, and I would like to just see the virtuosic role as well, because the bass guitar is capable of that. And I will also keep on doing the Substack as a public diary to finally open up my mind a bit to what has been there all along. So my first plan is to catch up, to see, okay, I've been missing a lot, and then also, okay, how can I develop as a musician? Is that clear, or?
Yeah, thank you.
Final question?
About the beginning, so the role confusion thing, I do understand it somehow, because in education, especially when you're young, teachers give you pieces of the puzzle. They cannot let the child see from above. But my question was mainly, once you got this kind of sorted out, did the people then that you saw in society that said, like, this is your place, this is your role, did they kind of disappear, or could you then just not give it attention anymore? Are they totally not there, or are there still somehow for you? How do you see it now?
I think it's very much, most of it is a projection of my own thoughts onto other people. But now I love Michael Leake as a composer and as a player, and even now I see with any of his records, he takes some liberties with some cool feels, and he plays the bass role in a musical way. So even there, I was not right. I sometimes still encounter people that have a bit more of this closed mindset, mostly in conservatories. Anyone outside of conservatories don't seem to have gone past that. So even if I see them, it wouldn't affect me much now, because I'm more comfortable in, or I think I see it more objective now, which you can never really claim, right? But I want to explore the instrument now fully, and it's naturally that some people don't like it, and some people think more in how it used to be, and some people think more in what are the possibilities.
What's the comparison with the Rhodes? Where did you get that about the taking up the space? Or the two
What do you mean?
voicing, the three-note voicings, that you would look at the instrument more like that, voicing-wise?
I was just, since I used this research to have a reason to buy a new bass. So I bought the 6-string bass, and all of it came due to experimentation. Now I have this new vertical option, because with one extra string you only have 5 halftones more, but it's really the moving across the neck and different voicings that are unlocked. For example, triads on a 4-string bass are actually harder to play than on a 6-string bass, because in a 6-string bass you can play a fifth, an octave higher as well, and then you can use these 2 fingers to play the top notes and then your 3rd finger to play the root. And it just came when playing with different chords, and I was bored with the standard shell voicings basses are supposed to play, and I thought, okay, what extensions can I play with the top note? Playing 4 notes together is also due to the instrument being tuned in fourths. So I figured out that the third that the regular guitar has in there is actually quite useful for playing chords. Look at that. And yeah, so I really noticed how much sonic space it just takes. It's beautiful for solo playing, but already when you play with another bassist together, you have to both to kind of adjust your EQs to fit together. So it's due to the thicker strings and the layout of the instrument. Did I answer your question?
I was just wondering, so it came across for me, so Rhodes players, then how it came across is they always use 3-note voicings.
No, so that's based on an assumption. I assume that when you play Rhodes, that you have to adjust your voicings differently than you do on a grand piano, because of the different sound voicings.
Yeah. But
And it's not that they that they only play 3-note voicings, because then they would not use the whole potential of their instrument. It's more, okay, how can you play with the different character, and maybe some voicings, more spicy ones, are not so good on the Rhodes than they would be on the grand piano.
Thank you. Okay, we will take a short recess, and at 1 o'clock we will continue with the Master Research presentation of Luca Pedana. Thank you.